But I don't think this should be particularly surprising when you look at the foundations of objectivist morality, because they are essentially based on a flawed understanding of biology. In her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, she says, "There is only one fundamental alternative in the universe, existence or non-existence, and it pertains to a single class of entities, to living organisms. It is only a living organism that faces a constant alternative, the issue of life or death. On the physical level, the functions of all living organisms, from the simplest to the most complex, from the nutritive function in the single cell of an amoeba to the blood circulation of a man, are actions generated by the organism itself and directed to a single goal, the maintenance of the organism's life." This, of course, is a gross oversimplification of biology. These physiological processes do not direct themselves at the single goal of preserving that one individual organism's life. They are directed more fundamentally at the preservation and proliferation of genes. Yes, they do keep the organism alive, but they only keep the organism alive because it needs to be alive to reproduce. None of these physiological processes would exist without reproduction. As far as your physiology and the genes responsible for that physiology are concerned, you live, first and foremost, to make babies.
Is part of Ayn Rand's validation of the objectivist ethics in conflict with modern biology. And I get this one. I think I've done this on the podcast twice. Isn't her claim that the automatic functions of living organisms are all aimed at the preservation of the individual organism's life in conflict with the consensus of modern biologists who claim that the ultimate goal is the reproduction of the organism's genes? Well, what is ultimate goal to whom? Now, living organisms don't have an ultimate goal. If you asked any copulating animals, what is your ultimate goal? That's ridiculous. They're enjoying themselves. Their motive, if you put it in human terms, is personal, selfish pleasure in their own life. So it's got to be either God's ultimate goal, or the biologists have got an ultimate goal as a Platonic archetype, or they've erected Darwin into a floating abstraction, because in actual reality, the concrete, their goal is judged by what they do. And their goal, they do reproduce, but they don't aim at reproduction as the consequence. Any more than a cow can get in front of a train and be dead, but it didn't aim at suicide. Now, but then the question can be put this way. Well, but reproduction, why is that a function in life, if in a living organism, if everything is supposed to be for life, for his life? And it's a very simple answer. Where does life come from? How was he going to live without being reproduced? Now, you could say, well, if I were God, I would have found a way that he comes out of thinner. And then, so there's no such thing as, passing on genes. But that doesn't happen to be the way reality worked. And reality happens to work in such a way that you can get to be alive only if some preceding generation does something. So, in that sense, your selfish life is a function of reproduction. Not that you're doing it to carry it on, but that's the way the setup is. That's the way the nature of a living organism is. So it's not at all the case that there's reproduction versus life, and the fact of reproduction refutes life as an end in itself. It's reproduction is the means of life, and the standard is still life. It's not the continuation of life in the next generation. I don't know, I get this all the time. It must be that biologists are making a big issue about reproduction. I guess because that's altruistic and you're serving the next generation.